Well. College football fans, Clemson Tiger fans, welcome back to the 10th episode of the All In Show here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Tiger Paul Craven. I got my co-host in the back, Jordan Bowman, that will be joining me momentarily. But before we bring him on, before we get into tonight's show, we got a ton to talk about tonight. We got spring practice in full swing. We got articles posted on 247. We got all sorts of stuff to discuss tonight. It's going to be a great show tonight, so stick with us. But before we get into all of that, if you are not subscribed to the channel already, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. We would really appreciate it. We try to bring the best content we can for Clemson football and for Clemson sports in general here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel for you guys. As you guys know, me and Jordan bring you this live show every Thursday at 7 p.m. Okay? We love chopping it up with you guys about Clemson football. We love getting into the comments and communicating with you guys. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button for us. And as always, this is a live video. Okay? And what's important about that is the like button. YouTube cares about that like button so much, especially when it comes to these live videos. It helps get it out to more people. So please, if you're in here, if you're in the live chat right now, go ahead and hit that like button, for us. And if you would like to support the channel in any other way, links are in the description of this video. Also, if you did not know, the Mark Rogers brand, the Voice of College Football brand, has launched their merch, okay? So go ahead and head over to the main channel at MarkRogersTV, the Voice of College Football, and go check out all the merch. Scroll through it. I'm sure you'll find something that you would enjoy, something that you would like to have. Go ahead and cop you some merch from the Voice of College Football, and that would help support these group of channels that we have going on, okay? So we would really appreciate that. But without further ado, with all of that out of the way, let me bring on my co-host, fan favorite, my boy, Jordan Bowman. Jordan, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. A little on edge because Clemson basketball is playing in the ACC tournament later tonight at 9:30. Which sucks. They get the last tip-off of the day against NC State. And you know how it feels to root for any Brad Brownell team. You're always on pins and needles because you can win or lose any game. And this NC State team is pretty hot. So we'll see. Clemson beat them twice pretty handily in the regular season, but hey, you never know. And this game feels like it's really important for the future of Brad Brownell as the head coach of Clemson's basketball program. So we're going to have to they're going to have to bring it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I've seen some reports out there that claim if Clemson gets to the tournament, then Brad Brownell is pretty safe. And then if they don't, Clemson has other plans. So we'll see how all of that shakes out. I think Clemson needs to win tonight. They need to make a deep ACC tournament run, I'm sure, to secure a spot in the tournament. So we'll kind of see how it goes, man. It's up and down with this Clemson team. They've had some amazing highs this season, and they've had some pretty low lows that we have discussed and that you have ranted about on this particular show this off season. So a lot of stuff going on in Clemson, man. A lot of stuff going on. We got baseball, we got softball going on, we got lacrosse, and we are in full-fledged swing of spring practice right now for Clemson football, which is what we're mainly going to focus on tonight. How excited are you to see this new Clemson team, this new Clemson football team?
Oh, I mean, this is my favorite. Well, I would say it's my favorite time of year because obviously my favorite time of year is when they're actually playing football
right.
in the fall.
Yeah.
But these are some of the more entertaining months is spring practice, because it's a lot of fun to just see how this team is starting to form just every single year, because that's something that Dabo has said a lot. He loves the thrill of building a new team and starting from scratch every year, because that's kind of how they go about it mentally. Yeah, you bring back some of the same players, but you're constructing the team different. Obviously there's some new faces, not just in with the players, but in the coaching staff. So that makes it even more poignant. So I'm really excited to see, because there's always surprises out of spring camp, new storylines, some players that are stepping up that you wouldn't necessarily expect, some guys that were not really on the radar that just kind of pop on the radar. You get to hear about true freshmen that are making strides early, which there certainly are some based on what I've been reading. So it's always a fun time of year, even with some of the injuries and limits on the depth chart currently, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get into all of it. I mean, we are going to go full-blown spring practice here tonight for a good portion of the show, and I can't wait to get into it. But before we get into it, man, it's been a great week, man. I'm glad to be back on here with you on the All In show here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel, man. I really do enjoy the show. I enjoy all the fans that come out and chop it up with us every week, man. And it's one of my favorite things to do. It's a highlight of my week to come on here and talk Clemson football and just really just Clemson sports in general. But we got a lot to talk about tonight, man. We'll start with spring practice here pretty shortly. But before we get into that, I want to give a shout out to the comment section real quick, and let's see who popped in here tonight, Jordan. Let's see who's popped into our live chat already. We got Ben Adams. Hey, what's up, Ben Adams? Edward, as always, is in the comment section. John Sarian is in the comment section already tonight. We got our usuals. We got our fan favorites, I guess. The guys that are on here supporting us every single show. Pat Bateman gets in and says, yo, thank you guys all for joining us. We really, really do appreciate it. Go ahead and hit that like button for us, guys. And without further ado, let's go ahead and start the spring ball talk. We are currently 4 days into spring practice. Clemson started spring practice on Monday, March 6th, right? And unfortunately, we have a lot of injuries heading into spring. I know we talked about it in the back room, and I told you we would lead the show off with kind of our key injuries heading into spring. Some of them we expected to have because we knew that they would need surgeries and various procedures heading into the offseason. And some of them were kind of a surprise, right? On the defensive side of the ball, you got XT with the foot. It seems like Clemson's just really resting him and really trying to get him comfortable with that new bigger screw that they had to put into his foot that he re-injured later on in the season. You got Ruka Rororo that'll be out. Sheridan Jones will be out. He got a surgery with his abdomen, stuff that was going on there that we knew about as the season was ending. Peyton Page will be out, and Jalen Phillips will be out with ankle. So that's kind of the defensive side of the ball. And then you go to the offensive side of the ball, and you got Troy Stellato, which, I mean, that guy has probably had some of the worst luck that, any wide receiver has had, in his short time at Clemson. He can't seem to get healthy. He's still recovering from that ACL injury that he suffered in fall camp this past season. So hopefully, he can shake back and maybe be a bigger part of the summer workouts and stuff like that, and getting some of his timing down with the quarterbacks. He kind of had a big fall, right? And then, tore his ACL, and that was kind of the end of the story there. So Haven't really seen a whole lot of Troy Stellato, but hopefully he can get back on the field. One of the big surprises for me, I guess, is Adam Randall. So we know that he's coming off of, that torn ACL that he had. But one of the big surprises is Dabo Swinney came out in his press conference, his spring practice press conference, and talked about how they had to go in and clean up his opposite knee. So not the knee that he had surgery on with his ACL and all that kind of stuff. That repair reportedly went well, but apparently they had to go into the other knee and kind of scope it and clean some things up and things of that nature. So that is a point of worry, I think, for Clemson in a wide receiver room that has honestly underperformed in the past 2 seasons. It just has not been to the level that we are accustomed to as Clemson Tiger fans, right? You got Bo Collins. He's still recovering from his shoulder surgery. On the offensive line, you got Marcus Tate and Walker Parks that will not be able to perform. Maybe I think Dabo said they'll be able to get some individual drills in, but they're obviously not a full go when it comes to good on good or any sort of competitive work. And then you got Paul Tyson, which is obviously our transfer QB, obviously just to add depth to the QB room. And he's struggling with some sort of thumb injury. I don't really know what that's about. And then John Williams with getting his appendix removed. So that's kind of some of the big injuries that we are facing heading into the first week of spring practice. What's kind of your takeaway with this? Is really the second season that we've ran into, right, where we have a pretty significant amount of players, especially big name players that, us fans know the name of, guys that, are really starters and big time contributors for the football team, not being able to participate in spring football. What's kind of your take on that? And will that affect that, especially, new offensive coordinator coming in? So.
Yeah, well, it certainly affects it for sure. Ideally you want to have all of these guys, and and like you said, it's a shame. This kind of been a recurring thing. Just a lot of guys out. I think the good thing is there are a lot of it gives a lot of opportunities to the guys under them, especially the true freshmen. We talk about the receiver position, for example, with Collins and Stellato and Randall and those guys, still limited. There's more reps for guys that are going to be asked to take on a larger role. Obviously, you still have Antonio Williams, so that's good, and he's still he's developing into a leader in that room. So that gives him an opportunity to kind of work with some guys that are younger than him as well. Antonio Williams and Cole Turner are obviously we're really excited about those guys in the slot. It gives opportunities for some of the true freshmen, Noble Johnson and Ronan Hannafin. I've heard some good things about Noble Johnson. He's been a really good contested catch guy real early on. He looks the part, so that's really good to hear. So I mean, these injuries they can sometimes be I don't want to say a blessing in disguise, because you never want guys hurt. There's always a silver lining to these types of things. As far as the offensive line, it kind of sucks, not having Marcus Tate and Walker Parks, but those are guys that have played a lot of snaps at this point, and it gives you an opportunity to work in some of the other guys, because I think the goal for the offensive line this year is to build depth. I feel like Clemson had a really good starting five last year, but the guys that they didn't, the guys behind them were really shaky, and it's not like that they don't have talent; it's just they haven't played a lot of snaps. And so I think giving them that opportunity, guys like Bryn Tucker and I was going to say John Williams is out. Bryn Tucker and Tristan Lay he's taking first team reps at left tackle. And Mitchell Mays, who started in the bowl game out of necessity when Marcus Tate went out.
Yeah, I think Mitchell Mays started the last 3 games or something like that.
Yeah, at guard. So. There's a lot of opportunity here. At Ryan Linthicum, I know Will Putnam isn't out, but it's good. He can still get reps in. So I mean, I think it's an opportunity for these young guys to really get a feel for the offense, and especially with Garrett Riley coming in, he can come in and kind of evaluate the group as a whole. He doesn't really have any of these preconceived, biases, and he even talked about that in his press conference. It's like it's really cool for him to. It's nice for him to come in with a fresh slate on all of these guys, and and get kind of give a fresh perspective that maybe some of their position coaches don't really have. So, I mean, these injuries suck. It sucks that you're dealing with it again, but there's always a silver lining for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, and there is always a silver lining, and Dabo alluded to that, and to a lesser degree, Garrett Riley alluded to that as well. Just getting to see some guys live, he really stressed the fact that it's nice to see live work versus watching basically this last year of Clemson's offense and the year before, kind of getting an idea of their depth. But he really made a point to say that he's really focusing on what he sees live here in spring, and that's kind of what's going to drive his determination. I have heard a lot of good stuff coming out about Noble Johnson this spring so far. Granted, it's only been 3 or 4 practices at this point, but he's obviously a physical specimen. He's got the size, he's got all the physical capabilities to be an elite receiver, and that's kind of something that Clemson's been missing. That big body receiver that can really go up and get passes and stuff like that. And Noble Johnson early on spring, let's not get too excited, but it looks like he could be that guy. And then maybe Bo Collins when he shakes back from this shoulder injury, this shoulder surgery that he had. He had a pretty consistent season last year, I think. Outside of his injury when he kind of got taken out of it, but he was one of the bright spots for the receivers this past season. But that also gives the opportunity to guys like Cole Turner, Antonio Williams, guys like that to really get on the field, really show what they can do. And then we already talked about the younger guys that can get on the field and really show what they can do, and maybe buy some early playing time, right? Because that wide receiver core is wide open. And then you talk about the offensive line, and we got some good guys on there that aren't going to be participating fully in spring. Now, a lot of these guys that we just mentioned, keep in mind, they are practicing to some extent, right? Some of them are doing individual drills. They're doing non-competitive work. They're still getting the install. They're still getting, all the verbiage and all the stuff with our new offensive coordinator and Garrett Riley. So it's not an all loss on those guys. And some of those guys have gotten so many reps that it's almost, like you say, not a blessing in disguise, but it's not the end of the world that they're not getting, the first team reps. Right, some of these younger guys are getting the first team rep, especially along the defensive line. Right, you got a XT out, you got a Rook out, you got a Peyton Page out. Right, and that kind of paves the way for a Woods, a Burley, guys like that to really get in and kind of show what they can do along the defensive line and really cement themselves and kind of get comfortable with some of the play calling and playing fast and stuff like that. So I mentioned all these injuries, not that it's completely a bad thing, but I feel like it's never good when you're heading into spring with this many people out and this many injuries. And it seems like it's been a common thread, at least for the past 2 springs with the Clemson team. So it kind of is what it is at this point. You make the best of it. I don't think it will affect the install on the offensive side of the ball with Garrett Riley. I mean, you heard Dabo talk about in his press conference and Garrett Riley talk about in his press conference about really how they're just meshing together as an offensive staff, and they're trying to understand terminology and get on the same page with that kind of stuff. And I think that's super important. We got our 15 mid-years in there that showed up. All those guys seem to be healthy. All of those guys are probably going to get significant work because of the injuries, which is not necessarily a bad thing in the spring. Now, if this was fall practice, we may be having a different conversation, right?
Yeah.
But this is spring. We have all summer to get healthy. We got fall camp to get in and really get ready for the season. So it's not the end of the world. And shout out to the young dudes. I hope they take full advantage of the opportunities that they get, and then also the guys that have been around for a couple years that will also get opportunities to prove themselves and maybe earn some snaps. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But kind of transitioning to, or before we transition, I just want to give a shout out to Jeremiah Trotter. I know Dabo Sweeney mentioned in his press conference that his mother lost her battle with breast cancer. And I just want to say, shout out to him and his family. Thoughts and prayers for them. I can't imagine what he's going through. I know it must be a tough time. I know he's, gone back and forth between being back home and back at spring practice. But, I really just, wanted to mention him and thoughts and prayers to him and his family as they deal with a super tough time with the passing of his mother. So,
absolutely. Yeah. It's a shame. And, it's within the last year that, there's two Tigers that have had, personal tragedies to cancer specifically.
Absolutely.
With people in their immediate family. So that, so obviously really awful news. Thoughts and prayers. Our hearts go to the Trotter family. They're dealing with a lot right now. And it was a lot of strength, reading that, Trotter was in spring practice and then, and going at home, and going back and forth and going through all of that, that takes a toll. So hopefully, hopefully his him and his family have the proper time to grieve and are able to find some light in a dark time. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always know the Clemson family does well with, supporting their players and stuff like that, especially in these hard times. And, we expect no less. They will obviously give him the time that he needs. But, I just hope he's doing well. His mind's in a good place. I know how hard that can be to lose a parent from cancer. So my condolences to him and his family, obviously. But moving on to the Garrett Riley interview and kind of him talking really not really the first time, but really for the first time since he's been involved with the Clemson offense and the Clemson players and really on the field with the team. He came out, he talked to the media. He talked a lot about keeping the offense simple, getting good at the simple things, getting good at the fundamentals. He talked a lot about dictating both pace and play to the defense. Not, you've heard Clemson fans talk a lot about being sick of hearing certain coordinators that are no longer with us talk about taking what the defense gives us. And that could not be any further from the rhetoric that a Garrett Riley is pushing as our new offensive coordinator. He's talking about dictating play to the defense, dictating pace to the defense, him not really caring about if they know what's coming, that his idea is that Clemson gets so good at executing their offense that they will just out-execute the defense. They will out-talent the defense. They will out-scheme the defense, regardless of what they know is coming. He talked about one of his major goals here in the spring is to find this particular Clemson offense's identity. And I really like all the talk about, he really focused on evaluating the personnel, finding out what they're good at, whether they're good at, inside zone, whether they're good at, whatever the case may be, and focusing on that and really developing his offensive scheme around what his personnel is good at, good at. And that's really a breath of fresh air for me as a Clemson fan, right? So he's really focusing on finding this team's strengths and what they're good at and just rolling with that. And then adding to the offense, obviously, as the season goes, as you game plan for certain teams, you add certain things. Cade even had an interview earlier this week where he was talking about, how they spent basically 2 hours running the same 15 plays in different formations and different variations of the same 15 plays, and just really focusing on the fundamentals and the players being comfortable with everything that's going on the field. So I really like a lot of the stuff coming out of Garrett Riley. He's saying all the right things. He seems to understand the needs of the Clemson offense right now. What were kind of your takeaways from his press conference and, how he addressed the media?
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I liked a lot of what I was hearing. And one thing that he really touched on was, and something that was mentioned was, being, and it's kind of what you sort of kind of touched on, was being simple, and not just the plays you're running, but simple in how many plays are you carrying. I mean, I know Cade talked about at one point, I think in the Orange Bowl they carried like 80 different
80,
plays or
80 plays,
something
yeah.
in the playbook. And Gary Riley was like, well, it's certainly not going to be 80 with me. If we can trim it, we can trim it. And I think that's something that I think this Clemson offense has really needed, because I think there's a common misconception that being simple is the same as being simple and easy are not the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
And so, being, you can run a very simple offense, but it's very, very intensive and, attention to detail is important. And you have to, and that's kind of what the air raid is execution and repetition and getting so good at, a small number of plays that it's hard for the defense to stop it. And that kind of ties back into, dictating to the defense what you're going to do instead of trying to take what the defense is giving you or
right.
Find the perfect play, because you are confident in your ability to run the play better than the defense can execute their own scheme. So I thought that was really, really huge, and it was really nice to hear. He mentioned how for example, like the wide receivers, in past Clemson offenses, the wide receivers would change sides and we would move guys around a bunch. And they had to be proficient at, playing on both sides of the field. And what Garrett wants to do is, keep guys play the same position. Obviously, you're going to have guys move around within the side, and not, you're not going to have one guy just play outside the whole time. But, being able to play on one side and really master the plays from that one position is huge, and it will kind of take some pressure and take some of the thinking, out of the receiver play, and I feel like that'll be, I think that's going to be a huge benefit to these guys, especially the young guys, especially like the true freshmen that are still kind of learning, and I think that's one of the cool things is everybody's kind of starting off on a new slate, because yes, the plays themselves are not unfamiliar, and a lot of what Garrett Riley runs, there's a lot of similarities to what Clemson has run in the past, but how it's run, how it's called, the formations, and the simplicity of it is a lot different, and it makes it should. The goal is to make it more manageable for these guys and make it more manageable for the quarterback. I really liked what I was hearing from Garrett Riley from all of those standpoints. Like he has a really good grasp of what he wants this offense to look like, as far as being simple, and being able to run whatever you want, without a whole lot of thinking.
Yeah, so. And it seems like he wants the guys to play fast and loose and be super confident in what they're doing at all times on the field, regardless of what play is called, right? And to his point, if he has to keep it simple to do that, that's what he's willing to do. And if you run a well-schemed play with good fundamentals and good speed, and everybody understands what's going on, regardless of whether you know what's coming as a defense, it's kind of hard to stop, right? Because the offense is just out executing you at that particular point. And Clemson definitely has the talent to do stuff like that. I really liked hearing everything that Garrett Riley was talking about. He did talk about making the quarterback feel comfortable, because if the quarterback's comfortable and the quarterback's playing fast, then good things are going to happen on offense almost every single time, right? And same thing for the wide receivers. And then he even mentioned later in his press conference about how that also creates flexibility within the offense if you get an injury on one particular side, because you keep it so simple and because it's so many reps of the same type of plays, just different formations and practice, then a receiver can then slide to the other side and so on and so forth. And it makes everybody feel super comfortable with the offense and really understand the entire scheme that's being run. So it looks like Clemson's offense is obviously heading in a different direction. I'm sure a lot of the core concepts, as both Dabo and Garrett Riley said, are still there. A lot of the terminology, I think, is changing a little bit in how they call stuff, how they sign stuff in, how they, the terminology and things like that as far as play calls. But at the end of the day, I think he's keeping it simple, especially in spring. He's really what I gathered from his press conference is just gaining an identity for this offense, and then we'll see how it rolls from there. Whatever his personnel can handle, he'll add. Whatever they can't, he'll trim, right? And I think that just sets the players up for the best success. And that's really your job as a coaching staff, right? Your job as a coaching staff is to take your players and put them in a position where they can be successful against the defense that they're playing against. And that seems to be what Garrett Riley is going to do. So lots of excitement out of the offensive side of the ball. Now, granted, the spring game, I don't think we'll see anything crazy. You'll probably see pretty basic stuff. It's not going to be anything groundbreaking or anything like that, because it's going to be like every other spring game we've ever watched in all of eternity, right? So don't look for any groundbreaking offense from Clemson in the spring game. But I have full confidence in Garrett Riley and his approach and him making this Clemson offense better, because I 100% believe, as we talked in previous shows, that we have the talent on the field to absolutely compete for, obviously an ACC championship and then more so a national championship. Super excited about it, man. I can't wait to see where this Clemson offense is come, next season, next football season. So as we get into the next season, I think we're going to be in a good place, So transitioning kind of to the defensive side of the ball, I don't know if you watch them, but several players had interviews on the defensive side of the ball. Barrett Carter, a Jeremiah Trotter, kind of like those leaders on the defensive side of the ball, right? And they talked a lot about how they felt that the defense, just plain and simple, wasn't good enough last year. They just weren't good enough. They did not get the job done. They did not they did not accomplish what they set out to do. And they feel like they have a lot of improvements coming into the season. And, everybody says that going into every single season, right? But it feels like there's a certain excitement around this Clemson team. It feels like there's a newness, a refreshed outlook on kind of Clemson football right now. It seems like there's a hunger within the players, and that definitely starts on the defensive side of the ball, I think. And they're just like looking at improving, right? A lot has been made about, Clemson's passing defense obviously needs to improve this season. It was obviously not up to par last season, but to me, the leaders of the defense, the Barrett Carters, the Jeremiah Trotters, the guys like that, they just sound hungry. They sound ready to improve and really take the Clemson defense to the next level this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of hear, and honestly, I think some of it starts with, their defensive coordinator, Wes Goodwin.
Yeah.
I think he would be the first to tell you that he felt like that they didn't perform up to expectations, and he had to grow a lot as a coach. And there are things that he has to make changes to in order to better serve his players.
Yep.
And so I think one thing he said was he wants the defense to be more freaking violent this year, and I think that's a great thing to hear, because
I love it.
just kind of upping the intensity, from his own in his own way. Not necessarily trying to be like Brent Venables or anything, but
Right.
definitely brings more of that intensity into practice, into games, all of that. And he wants that to translate to his players. And so I think there's a lot of guys in that room that, felt like they needed to do better. So I think there's, like you said, there's this hunger. I mean, you think of a guy like Andrew Makuba. He's already gained, I think Dabo said he's already gained 10 pounds.
Yep. 9 or 10 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah.
This offseason.
He was playing, kind of undersized at nickel, and it's going to be nice to see him kind of to see how he grows, because I think part of it was Dabo just wanting him to take more personal responsibility with his health, how he prepared his preparation and all of that, because obviously we know how talented he is.
Of course. I mean, we
saw
saw it his freshman season, right? Like, he was absolutely outside of his mind. We were super excited. And, Dabo even said it in his press conference that he believes Andrew Makuba regressed this past season. Yeah. And he really wants to see him mature from a leadership standpoint, from a take care of his body, from a preparation standpoint, right? He really wants to see him improve this season. And it looks like, by what Dabo said, he's off on the right foot this spring. So,
yeah, and I think that's going to be huge for his confidence, because he clearly looked frustrated, throughout the year. And the South Carolina game was awful for him.
Yeah, he was obviously feeling the pressure.
Yeah, and so I think it's going to be it's huge for his confidence. And he's developing more. He's developing physically, obviously. Putting on some weight. And he's taken all the right steps to being productive this spring, and being ready to play better football. When the fall rolls around. So excited to see him. And I think one of the things that has helped sort of the energy on the defensive side of the ball is just the influx of talent from this freshman class. I think a guy like Peter Woods, he's obviously the headliner of the defensive line class. Right. He was at a Clemson basketball. He was at, I can't remember which game he was at. And he said at halftime, he plans to lead Clemson to a national championship. I mean, he's come in with the right attitude. He's just one of those players that that brings the energy that's infectious.
Yeah.
A sort of intensity. He's a dude already. And it's, from everything I've read, it's pretty clear he's going to be playing really early.
Yeah.
So
kind of reminds you of a Christian Wilkins, right?
Yeah.
Just like brings that infectious energy, that energy that everybody just feeds off of. Just that guy that, some dudes just come in and they're just natural leaders, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. So I think he commands a lot of respect already. And just there's a lot of guys that have come in this freshman class that are ready to contribute, and are willing to compete and have the right attitude. And I think that speaks to the job that this staff did on the recruiting trail this season, because I think this team needed it. The influx of talent, the fresh, rejuvenated energy from these freshmen is going to be huge. Especially these defensive linemen, And I've already, some of the linebackers, Jamal Anderson he already looks the part already. D Creighton has been I think he's been repping that mic this spring, so and he looks the part as well. So just a lot of freshmen in this room that can really contribute early. I mean, Shelton Lewis, he's a guy that Clemson picked up late and kind of an underrated. He was kind of an underrated guy, but they really like what they have in him so far too.
Yeah, I mean,
so just a lot of talent in this in this room.
It's kind of the beauty about some of these bigger name guys being out. A Ruka, Peyton Page, an XT, guys like that. And then you get to see what is a Greg Williams going to do? What is Zaire going to do? What is Denhoff going to do? How are they going to perform when they're kind of pushed into the fire? These guys have kind of been, role players.
DeMonte Capehart.
DeMonte Capehart.
We forget about him.
That. Yeah, DeMonte Capehart. Guys like that. What are these guys going to be able to step up and really take advantage of their opportunity, because they're going to have tons of opportunity this spring. Our big name defensive linemen are pretty much out for the most part. Outside of Maskell, all of our big time defensive linemen are just out this spring. So we do get to see what a Peter Woods, what a Burley does, what a Zaire does, what a Denhoff does. We get to see, kind of, are these dudes ready? Are they ready to take that next step? Are they ready to step into a different realm and actually contribute as key guys along the defensive line? Because at the end of the day, as the season wears on, we're going to need those guys. I mean, it's great to have, an XT, a Rook, a Peyton Page, a Tyler Davis, a Justin Maskell. It's great to have those core guys that we just, those are the guys that we kind of we know what they can do, right? But we need these other group of guys that are super talented that we recruited because, that the talent is there, the opportunity is there. They just got to reach out and they got to take it, and they got to take that next step and really become, what they were brought here at Clemson to be. So it's going to be a super interesting spring, especially on the defensive line.
Absolutely.
Byron Davis gets in. Seems like he watches our most of our videos in reruns, but he caught us live. So thanks for tuning in, Byron. We appreciate you.
Yes, and that's a group of people we don't shout out enough.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
People that don't catch us on the live but rewatch us, that's always and that's honestly the majority of the audience. So
absolutely,
we don't really shout those guys out. So if you guys are catching this on the rewatch, we truly appreciate it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That helps out the channel. That helps out our videos as well. Obviously, the more views, the better off we are, right? Taco Gaming gets in. Appreciate you guys getting in. Thanks for stopping by. We appreciate you all getting in here. So that's kind of where we're at with spring so far, right, Jordan? We got all those core injuries, but we got a lot of young dudes that, hopefully are going to step up. We're definitely going to see where the depth of our defensive line is, especially on the edge, right? We need some of those guys to really step up. We need some wide receivers to step up. Who knows who that's going to be? Look like we got some promising people early on in spring, but we'll see how it progresses. And then really building, I think offensive line depth is going to be a big thing for us as well. So finding those first five guys is great, but I think we had the first five guys right last season, right? And then we saw how it went later on in the season when we caught, a little bit of injuries and things like that, and our offensive line got super shaky because we didn't necessarily have the depth behind them to really back them up and really step in if the time was needed. So it's a good opportunity for Clemson to build depth. It's a good opportunity for them to get familiar with the new offense. And I think so far we are trending in a upward direction. You know, Noble Johnson obviously has been mentioned probably the most as far as the young receiving core, just because I think he's just physically, he's just one of those guys that showed up physically ready to perform at a level that Clemson plays at. So hopefully he is as advertised, and we can get rolling. I really want to see Adam Randall be able to do some stuff. Troy Stellato, I don't know if he's ever going to be healthy, but I hope he is. The coaches raved about him, especially in fall camp before he tore his ACL. But it seems like he's not recovering as well as some others have from that ACL surgery. So, but I'm sure he'll be good by the time summer workouts and stuff roll around. So, I guess we'll leave some spring talk there for now, and let's kind of transition into. I don't know if you heard, but Clemson just debuted and opened their new Clemson Athletics Branding Institute, dubbed by one Dabo Sweeney the Cab, or I'm assuming that came from him because that definitely sounds like a Daboism right there. It's one of the few, or maybe is it the first in the country?
It is the first.
It is the first in the country. So Clemson obviously leading the way once again when it comes to name, image, and likeness, which would, oddly enough, go directly against the narrative that Dabo Sweeney doesn't want players paid for their name, image, and likeness. Isn't that what everybody says, Jordan? What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, if you ask,
why is Clemson building an NIL facility if Dabo doesn't want any players paid for their NIL? Like, I don't understand what is going on.
And the funniest part was, just seeing some of the reactions to it, because I saw so many things like Dabo must be fuming right now. Dabo is angry. Didn't Dabo say this? Dabo. It's funny how quickly, like, people, how rent free Dabo lives in some people's heads. But
oh man, it's amazing.
It was really ironic because Dabo was one of the people that advocated for this, but they don't know that, and they when you call people out on it, people that, and this is something that if you've spent any time on the internet, you've probably realized people are going to believe what they want to believe. I mean, in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary, if they've already made up their minds about something, more often than not, they're not going to change their mind. And Absolutely. So it's at a certain point, it's like just let them get their jokes off, let them criticize all they want, because at the end of the day, Clemson made the move that made an innovative and a pioneering move in the realm of college athletics and NIL in particular. I thought it was really cool how they presented it. The drone footage was really awesome.
It was a great video.
Whoever did that, I think I don't know who did the drone footage, but it was really, really well done.
I'm assuming the Clemson media team. So they did an amazing job. I mean, it was a flawless video. It looked really cool. It definitely debuted the facility really well. Kind of walked you through it from a camera and a drone perspective. It was a super well and super cool video that the Clemson media team put out. I'm assuming that's who did it. Maybe they hired someone. I don't know.
They might have. I don't know.
It was well put together. It was definitely professionally done.
So, but it was just really cool to see, and it's easy to focus on the negative reactions, but the majority of people, even non-Clemson fans, were really positive. It was really cool, and so I think that's a huge it's a huge deal, because obviously Clemson is not necessarily considered an NIL juggernaut in that space, and
Although
they've certainly lost their fair share of recruiting battles these past few cycles.
They do have two collectives, so Clemson
Yeah.
was one of the first universities to do that as well. So
They do have two.
all these people that talk about Clemson falling behind and them not wanting to keep up with the times, Clemson keeps being the first or one of the first to do all these innovative things when it comes to the evolving college football, the landscape that we live in. So
that is true.
It's really an interesting take that everybody has about Clemson when, if you really, look at the facts and you look at all the stuff that Clemson does, it's actually the contrary. They are keeping up with, in some ways leading the way in a lot of these new things in college athletics. So
I think it's huge from a recruiting aspect. Just to say that you're the first, because I think it makes a statement. To prospective recruits that, hey, we emphasize NIL and especially since all the narratives out there about Clemson being a school because of just the overreactions and misconstruing of things that Dabo has said in the past, that Clemson is a school that's like anti-NIL and anti-player and all of that. So I think that kind of sends the message that, hey, we're definitely not just going to let ourselves fall by the wayside. This is something we care about, and we're going to be. And not only are we just going to follow, we're not just going to follow the leader here. We're going to be at the forefront of a lot of changes, and so it's really, really awesome to see, and it's just a really impressive. And the cool thing is it's just an add-on to the facility. It wasn't like you had to create a whole new building for it.
Right. So, yeah.
It was really incredible to kind of see that, and it's state of the art, man. Just the audio visual room, the podcast room, the huge conference.
Yeah, they got a conference room. They got a podcast room.
Yeah,
they got a place for photo shoots. They got a video room. They got an editing room where players can go edit their own videos with the best computers that money can buy and all that stuff. And then not only have they built this facility and have all this equipment that is free, absolutely free for players to go use. They have all the cameras, all the computers, all the stuff for players to go use. But then they got a guy in C.D. Davies, which is a former CEO, a guy that understands marketing, that understands branding and stuff like that, a super qualified guy that all the players can call on at any time of the day. He is the point of contact. He is the NIL coordinator for Clemson. So I don't know how many schools out there, I'm sure Clemson's not the only one, but I don't know how many schools out there have a guy that is just designated for an NIL coordinator. So he's not only is he helping the players, and he's helping them understand, how to market themselves, how to brand themselves, what do they want to portray to the public, what kind of image do they see themselves portraying. But then he's also dealing with companies and making sure that they're lining up with not only the best interest of the players, but also with the rules, making sure everything's above ground, making sure everything is all kosher and stuff like that. So, I mean, Clemson is really leading the way when it comes to some of this stuff. And they got that guy in C.D. Davies who is the go-to for all the players. They can call him any time of the day. They can get advice. He can vet the deals that some companies come to them with and see if they are, in the best interest of the player or not, because he's working for the Clemson student athlete. He's not working for these companies, right? So, I mean, that's pretty crazy, dude. It's it definitely flies in the face of the narrative that Clemson doesn't buy into any of the changes going on with college football, because overall, that's kind of the narrative around Clemson. That's kind of the narrative around Dabo Swinney, is that they don't want any of these changes in college football. They don't want players compensated. They don't want players, yada, yada, yada. We have all heard it from both the national media, people on YouTube, people with their various podcasts, all those sort of things, and they couldn't be any further from the truth. Because again, here's Dabo proving everybody wrong once again. Guess what? You took a small excerpt of what he said in a press conference and you just ran with it because it was clickbaity and it was a hot headline and it was something to talk about instead of it actually being reality. So pie in the face to all the college football fans and all the people who just love to hate Dabo Swinney. It really makes me laugh. It's sort of entertaining at this point. I'm sure Twitter is making all sorts of excuses. You're my Twitter guy, so I'm sure Twitter is making all sort of excuses about Clemson's angle for their branding institute or their NIL facility. That is what it is basically. So.
It is what it is. Yeah, there's certainly the fair share, but like I said, the reception was overwhelmingly positive. So I don't want to.
That's good.
I don't want to be super negative because it was cool to see how many. It wasn't just Clemson fans that were praising it and were blown away. It was other fans, executives from other universities, anywhere within the space of college football, there was a positive reception to it. So really cool for Clemson. And it definitely makes them stand out because not only are they the first to have such a facility, they're the only one that has theirs up and running. Bama announced theirs a few months ago. Some other schools that are currently building theirs. But Clemson is the first in all of college football that has a facility solely dedicated to name, image, and likeness that is currently up and running. This was announced. I mean, the facility itself was announced in 2021. So Clemson was way ahead of the curve anyway.
Way ahead.
So
way ahead. And not to mention, they built an NFL locker room in their facility as well.
Yep.
And those of you that don't know what that is, that's for all their former players to come back and to have a place to put their stuff and shower and train and, their own little personal spot to, continue to use all Clemson's facilities and various, stuff that they have to offer. All those guys can come back and continue to use Clemson facilities. So they're taking care of players even after they leave the program.
Absolutely.
So Clemson's really leading the charge when it comes to that. And, I commend him. I know Dabo gets a lot of hate, but I think all of his concerns come from a legitimate place, and none of it is to suppress player opportunity. I don't think any of his concerns ever come from a place that is not in the best interest of players. I think he's always trying to operate within the best interest of his players and how to help them best. And nothing more says that other than hiring a guy in C.D. Davies whose sole job is to help these kids and these college kids who don't understand finances, who don't understand taxes, who don't understand these contracts that they're signing. And he's got a guy here that's helping them through that entire process so that they don't get taken advantage of, so that they understand what they're doing, so that they understand both the short-term and the long-term ramifications of the decisions that they're making and the partnerships that they're making when they're in college. So they're not just, quote unquote, grabbing the bag, right? Which is what a lot of people like to say NIL is about. And that's not what Clemson's NIL is about. They're really teaching these guys for the future to really build their brand and really set up relationships for the future that continue to be beneficial to them well after they leave the Clemson University, right? And the footprint of Clemson. So, and that's why you get guys come back. I know we just, to talk about NFL guys, right? You mentioned, we got the NFL, not the draft, the combine, right? KJ Henry was out there. Brian Brzee was out there. All those guys were out there. Miles Murphy performing. Guess who was back in Clemson for spring practice? Watching spring practice. KJ Henry,
5.
Brian
Number 5.
Brzee.
Yeah.
Those guys are back at spring practice. Why? Because Clemson truly does care about them. Clemson truly does take care of them, even after they're no longer active Clemson players. And I think that's important. Yes, Clemson's going to miss out on certain recruits. Yes, Clemson is not everyone's cup of tea, but I think at the end of the day, they do appeal to a certain group of people. They do appeal to a certain group of parents who want their kids taken care of, who want them, developed not only on the field but also off the field. And I think Clemson does a great job with that. I think they are one of the universities that absolutely get it right in that department. Not only, of course, does Clemson want to win national championships? Do we want to be successful on the field? Do we want to win, the ACC and all that stuff? Yes. But we also want, Dabo also preaches, graduation and learning business and learning marketing and learning how to set yourself up for the future and networking with different companies, which is what Paul Journey's all about, right? Paul Journey's been around since 2011? When did
I think
Dabo,
might be older. Yeah,
might be older than that, but
I think
basically since
him and Kathleen took the. I think they started when Dabo got the full-time job.
Basically since Dabo brought Jeff Davis on, right? That was the birth of Paul Journey. That's Jeff Davis's baby, right? That's what he does. Doing the micro internships and all this stuff for, because everybody that plays for Clemson is not going to the NFL. Everybody's not going to be a millionaire. Like a Trevor Lawrence, like a Deshaun Watson, like a, DeAndre Hopkins. They're not all going to be those players. They're not all going to be a Mike Williams, a T. Higgins. That's just not reality. So setting them up with companies where they can, make a living and take care of their families in the future, I think it's something Clemson gets right. And I think a lot of schools don't get it right. So that's my rant. We should probably move on from that.
No, but hey, you were going. You made some really good points, and
so
I wholeheartedly agree. And again, just a really awesome move for the school, and just not just the football program, but the athletic program in general. So really awesome to see.
I truly love Clemson's culture. I like what they're about. Good stuff. Clemson continuing to evolve and take care of their student athletes and their football players, which is what they're supposed to be doing. So let's transition now into this article that you had to tell me about. I did not know about this article until you told me about this article earlier today when we were kind of talking through, some of the stuff, that we wanted to talk. Obviously, we knew we were going to cover spring practice and stuff like that, but, we were kind of talking through some of the other stuff that we wanted to highlight on the show. And you brought up this article from 247 Sports. I don't know if any of our audience out there is familiar with this article at all, or if they have read it. But let me tell you, it is quite the read, and it is from Brad Crawford over at 247 Sports. And he ranked basically the top 35 college football coaches, right, in order from 1 to 35. And I just want the comment section out there. Before we get into this, Jordan, I want the comment section out there to try to guess the top 5 in order. That's what I want the comment section to do really quick. We will not mention the top 5 in order. If you have seen the article, please don't put it in there. I want your best guess if you have not seen the article, just to guess the top 5. We'll just start with the top 5. So while everybody's in there, Edward Brad Crawford, the Gamecock fan.
Yeah, he is certainly a Gamecock apologist for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an interesting list to say the least. But while we're waiting on people to put them in, some of the kind of standouts that outside of the top five.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, let's talk about
he
some of
ranked,
the bottom of the list, because there was some weird stuff down there too that I was like, really? Like, it got a little.
yeah.
It got a like I think like a Dave Clawson was like all the way down at the end of the list almost. Was he
Yeah,
35?
he's 35
35. And
behind
you
behind
and you and
behind
you should
Mike
have,
Elko.
yeah, some of the coaches above him, I was like, what? What is going on? So uh John Sarian says, I've already read it. I know how whack it is. Okay, so it seems like everybody in the comment section, or everybody commenting right now, has read it. So I guess we can get into the top five, and they go as such. Kirby Smart, obviously back-to-back national champion from UGA. Nick Saban. Number 3, Jim Harbaugh. Number 4, our very own Dabo Swinney. And number 5, Brian Kelly, first-year head coach from LSU. So let's just talk about this. I don't have a problem with 1 and 2 being Kirby and Saban. I don't think you do either. Whatever.
I do have the Kirby over Saban thing is interesting.
I think that's a lot of recency bias, because Kirby Smart is a back-to-back national champion. So they're just naturally putting him at 1. But I mean, honestly, if you're talking about overall coaching resume, it's not even close. It's not even close. I don't care that Kirby Smart has won back-to-back national titles. That doesn't matter. His resume does not is dwarfed compared to a Nick Saban. There's no one out there that has the resume of a Nick Saban. They don't. So if you're talking about overall resume, yeah, Nick Saban should 100% be number 1, not Kirby Smart. But I get the recency bias there. But the Jim Harbaugh over Dabo Swinney, in what world does that make sense? Make that make sense for me. How is a Jim Harbaugh ranked over a Dabo Swinney? Why? Because he beat Ohio State two years in a row and went to the playoffs and got his butt kicked? I mean, he lost to a TCU team that got, what was the final score of the national title? Do you remember, Jordan?
I believe it was the score of 65-7.
65-7.
Yeah.
So Jim Harbaugh beat the mighty Ohio State Buckeyes, went to the playoffs, lost to a TCU team that went on to the national championship and got blown out by a Georgia team 65-7.
Yeah. There are some things that just I understand that this list is supposed to is and I think he even acknowledges in the article that that his list is heavily based on has a heavy recency bias in it. But
no
just because you acknowledge it doesn't mean it excuses it.
Yeah, doesn't make it any more or any less ridiculous.
I just don't see a world where you can. I don't see how you can justify ranking Dabo below Jim Harbaugh. If we're talking about even within the recency bias, sphere of looking at things, it would make a little bit more sense if Dabo had gone. I understand Harbaugh has made back-to-back playoffs,
right,
and back-to-back Big Ten titles. And
sure,
he should be commended for that. He's done a great job there. This is not me disrespecting Jim Harbaugh. I think he's a good coach, and he's done a good job of kind of reviving that program, because he was about to be let go after the COVID season, or really close to being let go after the COVID season. And it would have been different if Dabo had, I don't know. Obviously, the past 2 years for Clemson football have not been up to the standard of what they were from 2015 to 2020. But they haven't fallen off a cliff.
No.
I think you could have made this, if you're acknowledging recency bias. I think you could have made this argument better if Dabo had gone like 6-6, or something, or even like 8-4 back-to-back seasons. And completely missed, didn't play for didn't win the ACC either year or anything like that.
I mean, the past two seasons they've gone 10-3 and 11-3.
Yeah,
like what?
That's better than a lot of seasons that Jim Harbaugh has had at Michigan.
Right, that's better than almost every season he's had at Michigan before these past two seasons. I mean, what are we like? In no world can you make that make sense? Yes. Did he beat Ohio State twice? Did he win the Big Ten back-to-back seasons? But that's it. Dabo Swinney is a two-time national champion. He revived a program as well. He has been consistent for over a decade at said program. How do you even compare what Jim Harbaugh's done at Michigan? And I'm not saying he hasn't done a good job, because he has done a good job at Michigan. But if you're comparing it to what a Dabo Swinney has done at Clemson, it's not even close.
No,
it's not even in the same realm.
No, you know what? And the thing is, Dabo Swinney has more national championships than Jim Harbaugh has bowl wins at Michigan.
There you go.
How you can rank a two-time national champion has won double digits, has had double-digit win seasons at Clemson every year since 2011. I don't see how two substandard by a little bit years enough to drop him another spot. I understood, if you want to elevating Kirby ahead of Dabo, he's won back-to-back, and so then now they're tied at national champions. Kirby has been at Georgia a shorter amount of time. Sure, I guess, and Georgia's obviously they're recruiting at a higher level. I get that. I'm not gonna push back too much if you want to put Kirby over Dabo.
Cool, whatever.
But Jim Harbaugh has had two really, really strong seasons in which it ended less than spectacularly. Obviously, I don't really fault him for losing to Georgia in 2021. That Georgia team is just really good.
Yeah.
And
what are you going to
do? Understand. But I will say that Georgia team did not look like that even against a substandard Clemson team that year. Clemson played them to a 10-3 slugfest, and Michigan was basically out of the game by the third quarter.
Correct.
So I'm just I don't, and yeah, this is a lot of comparative and all of that, but it's I don't understand the reasoning here. I don't see how making two playoffs in which you didn't win a playoff game as enough to elevate elevate someone over a coach who's won two national championships, has made four other playoffs, and he did it with consecutively as well. Just because they had they had a 10 and 11 win season instead of a 12, 13, 14 win season. I think that's silly. And what's funny? Harbaugh has beaten Ohio State 2 years in a row. Dabo still has more wins over Ohio State than Jim Harbaugh does.
I was gonna say that. And guess what? We don't play them every year.
Yeah.
So congratulations, Jim Harbaugh. And then also Brian Kelly at 5. Really?
Yeah,
Brian Kelly at 5.
That's an interesting one, because I think I didn't hate that one. I don't hate that one as much.
I don't hate it, but I don't know, man. Fifth?
I think he's rewarding. I think he's rewarding Brian Kelly for being, because Brian, I'm not a huge fan of Brian Kelly personally. I don't think he's like a horrible person, but he kind of he definitely rubs some people the wrong way, and it's a matter of personal taste.
Hey, he's got a family.
He's got a family, yeah, that's right. But it's all about that family atmosphere. But I think Brad is rewarding Kelly for being incredibly consistent. Because say what you want about Brian Kelly, he's everywhere he's been, he's won at a really consistent high level. Has he won a national championship? No. He's played for one, but he hasn't won a national championship. But he's been incredibly consistent going back to his days at Cincinnati. He was really good at Notre Dame. Went to 2 playoffs with Notre Dame, and this first season at LSU, a program that was that's been kind of reeling in the since the latter years of Ed Orgeron.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but like, don't you at least got to win a major postseason game to get in the top 5? Like, I mean,
when you put it in perspective of some of the guys that he ranked by, like he put Ryan Day behind Brian Kelly, and I mean Ryan Day, yeah, he's only been at Ohio State since 2019, but he's won a playoff game.
Yeah,
he's won a Big Ten title.
Brian Kelly can't even win a damn bowl game. I mean, what are we doing?
I mean, LSU did demolish Purdue, but I guess that's, whatever.
Come on now, it's Purdue. But I said a major postseason game, not against Purdue. It's just nobody cares about that. I don't know, man. I think it's a little too.
This list has a lot of interesting plays.
I don't hate it, but I think it's too high for Brian Kelly. I don't know, man. I think that's undeserved. Not saying he's not a good coach or that he won't eventually be successful at LSU or anything like that, because he very well might be. But you got to show me more than what Brian Kelly has shown me to be considered in the top 5 of college football coaches right now. Not that he's a terrible coach, because I'm not saying that he is, because I don't think that he is, but he just hasn't proven enough, I don't think, to be in the top 5 of college football coaches right now.
Yeah. And we'll see. I mean, it's his first, he had a really strong first year at LSU, but sure. you gotta keep it up.
Yeah, he's got to follow that up now. He's got to continue the momentum that he built season 1, which he did really good. I mean, went to the SEC championship season 1. So, unfortunately for him, he probably set a pretty high bar with the LSU fans. So, he's going to have to maintain that, which may be difficult. Just based off the people that they have to play. And then 6 through 10 was Ryan Day, Riley over at USC, Kyle Whittingham at Utah, Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, and then
still weird to say.
That's so weird to say. I keep wanting to say Cincinnati. And then Heupel at Tennessee. That rounds out your top 10 people. So you got Kirby, Saban, Harbaugh, Dabo, Brian Kelly, Ryan Day, Riley, Kyle Whittingham, Luke Fickell, and Josh Heupel to round out your top 10. An interesting top 10, to say the least.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the main gripe, obviously, I mean, this is a Clemson show. We obviously were a little surprised by.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. Jim Harbaugh cannot be ranked over a Dabo Swinney. That's absolutely ridiculous. You can rank if you want to rank Kirby and Saban, sure, whatever. Kirby, back-to-back national championship. Saban, obviously the best resume ever in college football. So if Dabo's third, I'm cool with that. But Dabo being behind a Jim Harbaugh, Absolutely not. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
The dude interviews for NFL jobs every offseason. At best he's won a Big Ten championship and no playoff games. So no, I'm sorry. You are not the third best college football coach. There's absolutely no way you are.
You gave the Big 12 its first playoff win.
You almost got fired 3 years ago. Yeah, and you gave the Big 12 its first playoff win. Oh, and it wasn't against an Oklahoma-led Riley team, right?
That's still crazy to me. Yeah, Oklahoma went to the playoff how many years? They went in 15, 17, 18, and 19. Like four. Yes. They went to it 4 times, and they haven't had another team make it, have they?
No. So they lost to Clemson the first time, right? And then
they lost to Clemson in 15. They lost to Georgia in 17. Lost to Alabama in 18, and lost to LSU in 19.
There you go.
So it's Oklahoma didn't end up being, and they never will be the first.
Nope.
We'll I mean, unless Oklahoma manages to, unless Brent Venables does something crazy their final year in the Big 12, and
I don't think so.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure the pieces are there to do all that. I'm sure they'll be better. I think.
No, I'm sure they'll be better. I hope they're better. I hope Brent Venables has success at Oklahoma, unless he plays Clemson, and then I hope he loses. But I hope he has success against
absolutely
as the head coach at Oklahoma. I wish him obviously all the best. But Jim Harbaugh will forever be the coach that allowed the Big 12 its first playoff win.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
TCU team, to be that win.
Yeah. That TCU team is not one of the better teams to make it either.
No.
So just
no.
That's all I'm saying. And if they played that game 10 times, does Michigan lose? More often than not, no. I think Michigan was better. I still think Michigan was a better team than TCU this year, but you can't lose that game.
But they still lost.
Yeah,
they lost when it mattered. So honestly, it doesn't matter that you were the better team. You lost. You would when all the chips were pushed in the middle of the table, you couldn't get the job done. So it honestly doesn't matter that you were a better team than TCU. They beat you. When the ultimate prize was at hand. Not that Michigan would have beat Georgia in a national championship either, but I don't think it would have had any bearing on the outcome of the national title. But you can't put Jim Harbaugh in front of Dabo Swinney in any coach ranking right now.
No. Unless you're ranking losses or bowl losses or something like that, and then sure, go ahead.
If you're ranking playoff coaches from last year, Dabo Swinney could be below Jim Harbaugh. That's about it.
Yeah, because he didn't make it. Yeah.
Because he didn't make the playoffs. That's about it. That's the only scenario that a Dabo Swinney would be below a Jim Harbaugh in any college football play or any college football coach ranking. So, not happening.
And no shade. And we have Michigan.
No shade to Michigan.
We have some Michigan fans that tune in.
No shade to Michigan.
2 guys I consider friends. So this is not. It's not an attack on Michigan or Jim Harbaugh.
Absolutely not Michigan hate. It's not anything like that. It's just if you're being objective. If you take off the big M glasses. You cannot say that Jim Harbaugh has been a better college football coach than Dabo Swinney. No. Maybe when it shakes out and it's all said and done, he will be. Probably not, but anything can happen. This is college football.
Not ruling it out for sure.
Ruling it out.
Michigan's going to have another really good team this year.
So, for sure. They're absolutely going to be good this year. Now, if Jim Harbaugh could just stop flirting with the NFL every offseason, maybe Michigan can get some freaking – some good recruiting done if he doesn't keep, interviewing for every open NFL job every offseason.
And they're most certainly being negatively recruited. And, they're
absolutely
like what? That's not really they're not like they're not heavy NIL, even though they probably could be, but they choose not to be. They're
They
not a
could
heavy
be.
NIL school, and so
They have a massive alumni base. I mean, they
yeah.
could.
And a
They
lot of
could.
rich alumni. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, they could.
no,
Ohio State too. I mean, both of
yeah,
them. They got massive, alumni bases, so they could really drum up more money than Clemson could ever dream of. Obviously Clemson's a way smaller school, so they could definitely be a big player in the NIL game. But it seems that they are going in a different direction when it comes to stuff like that. Which to each their own. Look, you gotta run your program. You got to do what works for you. And they're going to be really good this season again. And honestly, their outlook this season is better than Ohio State's right now.
yeah,
When you're looking at the two teams objectively, you can't say that Michigan's not better, at least on paper right now, than Ohio State heading into into spring and into the next season. Michigan's obviously the better team right now. We'll see how it shakes out at the end, but right now, if I had to pick it, I would pick Michigan over Ohio State right now. So there's obviously no hate to Michigan. Just we definitely had to make some noise about that ranking, and because Brad Crawford is clearly, a chicken man. So it is.
yeah. This is more of my vendetta against Brad Crawford.
No, it's all about where his bias lies, not necessarily about Jim Harbaugh in Michigan.
Yeah, for sure.
More so him. But so talking, moving on from that, I think we killed that quite enough. Talking a little recruiting, Clemson recruiting. Any news on the Clemson recruiting trail right now?
Well, the funny thing is I have not done any preparation. I didn't do any preparation this week. It shows how professional I am.
Hey, this is nothing but a professional show. Okay, all our fans know. Yeah. We are, we are. If nothing, we are professional. Okay.
So I don't have any big notes. Obviously, this weekend is a big recruiting weekend for Clemson.
Right.
A lot of visitors, and it's going to be an interesting one because there's a lot of there've been a few late additions that I've seen, some guys that have that Clemson has kind of been talking to for a long time that are just now that have confirmed they're going to be there. We will see how many of them leave with offers. I think quite a few of them will. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. That's kind of it's a huge day, a huge weekend on this week. As far as recruiting, kind of their second junior day, so we'll see how that turns out. I'm really interested in the quarterback. How Clemson continues to evaluate the quarterback position. Obviously, Aaron Noland is going to be there.
Yep.
The 4-star quarterback, left-handed. He's a guy that the staff really likes. Garrett Riley really likes. So I am really intrigued to see what he, how that visit goes and where Clemson ends up in kind of the hierarchy there. Not a whole lot of comments. I don't have the list of guys in front of me, so I don't want to say anything that's not true or that's incorrect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just wanted to mention that Clemson does have some recruits coming in this weekend and stuff like that. So we'll look for the news to come out. Maybe some big news will come out, and we can talk about it next week on our Thursday night show. Obviously at 7 p.m. But yeah, Clemson, got some guys coming in this weekend. We'll see how it goes. Now, something I do know that you know about, something that you need no preparation for. I don't even need to tell you. Let's talk a little bit of your favorite sport, the Clemson basketball team, and your favorite coach, Brad Burnell. My favorite coach is Dabo Swinney. Jordan's favorite coach is Brad Brunell. If you guys didn't, I'm just kidding. I'm absolutely kidding. I'm just rallying Jordan up to get him riled up, ready to talk about Clemson basketball. But we did open the show, and you did mention the Clemson basketball team, and I said that there's reports out there talking that if Clemson makes the tournament, Brad Brunell's safe. If they don't, maybe not so much. So what are your takes on that? What are your takes on Clemson's chances of making the tournament? I do know they have an ACC tournament game coming up in about an hour from now. So just give us the basketball rundown in the eyes of the one, the only Jordan Bowman.
Yeah. The thing about it seemed like in throughout a lot of the season, that was kind of the narrative and what was kind of the message that appeared to be sent to Brad Brownell, is that he really had to do something this year, and making the tournament was a prerequisite. But it's been a really odd season for Clemson, because in a lot of ways this team has been historic. Obviously breaking the 2017-18 team record in ACC wins. Their highest, they placed third in the league, which is their highest in 15 years. This program has set a lot of milestones this season, and I think that's kind of made the messaging a little bit more ambiguous as far as what the expectation for this team is. And I think there's a decent chance that even if Clemson does not make the tournament, that Brad Brownell will be retained. I don't think now. I say this without any real knowledge of the situation, but that kind of seems to be what the messaging has been as of late. And so I think that Brad Brownell, I think he's, for the most part, done a really good job this season. I think this is a team that he's had he's kind of been building toward. The core pieces of this team, a lot of them are guys that he recruited, which is a good thing to see. He's not, he brought in transfers, but the main contributors, PJ Hall, Hunter Tyson, Chase Hunter, Ian Shefflin, whoever you want to name, those are guys that Brad Brownell has brought in, from the high school ranks, and guys that he has developed. And so I think that's a really good sign. And I think for the most part, this team has been really good. The problem is the one that you can't ignore the losses that this team has suffered. This has been a season that with a lot of highs and a lot of lows, and the lows have been really, really awful. And because of that, it could end up costing this team a chance at a tournament bid, even though I think this team's absolutely good enough to play in the NCAA tournament. I don't think there are 68 teams better than Clemson in the country. But that being said, because of the net rankings and what all the metrics and all of that, they seem to punish bad losses more than they do reward good wins. This team is still on the outside looking in, and it's one of those things where if you don't make the tournament, that is a huge disappointment, and the outlook moving forward is kind of in question, because you've got some veteran leadership on this team. This team is really old.
Yeah,
some of these guys are not going to be back next year. I doubt Hunter Tyson is. Hunter Tyson's in his 5th year, so I guess he would have the COVID year if he wanted to play a 6th season. But I don't think he wants to. I don't think he wants to do that. Brevin Galloway is collecting Social Security checks at this point. So I don't expect him back. He's been a really huge contributor. A guy they brought in from the transfer portal, a guy that wanted to be at Clemson originally. Obviously, if the Galloway name sounds familiar, he's the brother of former Clemson tight end Braden Galloway. But yeah, he was a guy that wanted to be a Clemson Tiger out of high school. Didn't end up working out. He ends up going to Boston College, having a solid career there, and then coming to Clemson for his final year, and he's been one of Clemson's key contributors. So he's going to be gone.
Right.
There's some young talent I think that can play, but I don't think Clemson is going to have this blend of experience and youth and talent next season. Even if you keep PJ Hall another year, obviously PJ is a junior now. I think he'll be back. I don't know what I don't know. I really couldn't tell you what his NBA future is like, as far as what he's getting out of that. I think he could, I think he could play in the NBA, and he's a guy that could definitely get drafted. But I don't know how high, and I don't know what kind of feedback he's getting right now. So I think PJ Hall will be back, which would be huge. He's been arguably Clemson's best player the last 2 seasons. Well, if you say last 2 seasons, he's definitely been Clemson's best player. But obviously, Hunter Tyson's had a really nice year this year. So it's a question of whether this team and whether this program is ever going to get better than this.
Yeah. And
that's a question that we don't really. That's a question I don't have the answer to. I really don't know. I like some of the young guys on this team, Chauncey Wiggins,
right? Which is kind of which is kind of what the question is, right? At least for me, like obviously everybody knows on this channel, if they watch our episodes, they know I kind of follow basketball, but from afar. You're kind of you follow it way more closely than myself. So is this the height of Clemson basketball, right? Or, back when they made, the tournament run, is that as best as basketball gets under Brad Burnell? And is that something that Clemson's okay with? As good as this season has been at times, it seemed like it was equally as bad at certain points of times in the season. And you mentioned some of the talent that Clemson's going to be losing. And what's the team going to look like next year, right? Where does Clemson basketball go from here? Are they going to be, markedly better next year, or the same, or worse? What is the outlook?
Yeah, it's a question that we don't really have the answer to, and will it get better than this? PJ Hall is the highest rated recruit Brad Burnell has ever signed. And he's an experienced veteran at this point.
Right.
If you get him back another year, that's huge. But when he leaves, what do you do? You have some nice pieces, but I don't think there's anybody on this roster that is as good as PJ Hall is. And so I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but it's going to be really interesting to see how this athletic, especially Graham Neff, how this athletic department navigates it. Because if they don't make the tournament, that's going to be pretty crushing.
What do you think their chances are of making the tournament right now?
Well, in most bracketology and most metrics, Clemson is currently on the bubble. They're in they are currently on the outside looking in. They are not in. They are not considered a team that is in the field right now. And so I do think this team needs to win tonight. I think it'll be I need to check the net because NC State's kind of a border team, but I think they might, if Clemson wins tonight, it might be a quad 1 win. I think it's a borderline quad 1, quad 2 win, which would be huge. Which would be huge for their resume. They have a winning. The funny thing is of all the teams on the bubble, Clemson is the only one that has a winning record against quad 1 teams. But yeah, they're the team they're one of the teams that's considered out of the field because of the quad 3 and quad 4 losses that they have.
Right.
But they definitely have to win tonight. I think for first things first, you have to win tonight, because it's over if you don't. And do they need? It would be really nice if they just went and won the whole damn tournament, because that's something they've never done. The ACC tournament, that is. They're the only founding ACC member school that has never won the ACC tournament. So that's shows how rough the history of basketball at this school has been.
That's tough.
So I think the best thing for this team would just be to remove all doubt and win all their games, which I think they can. They're good enough to.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of whether they get hot at the right time. Obviously, Duke is playing really good basketball right now. Miami is tough. Virginia is always tough. You got to go through some good teams. But it starts with beating NC State tonight, a team you've beaten twice by double digits in the regular season.
Hopefully Clemson gets it done again tonight, moves on, and tries to further their case to get into the tournament, because I think it would be a real shame for this season to end and Clemson to not be a tournament team. Not that they're, going to the Final Four or winning the NCAA tournament or anything.
Well, they're going to be a tournament team. They could be an National Invitational tournament team.
Yeah, well, I'm talking the real tournament.
Yeah.
So hopefully Clemson can get that done. I don't know. I have little to no faith in Clemson basketball, unfortunately, which is why I don't torture myself and I follow it from afar.
Hey, well, it's not like you're not justified. So,
so maybe that makes me a terrible Clemson fan. I don't know.
No,
but it is what it is.
I think the fan base has deserved better for a long out of the program for long past even Brownell. But obviously his tenure. I mean, he's been here a long time. He's won a good amount of games. He's now the all-time leader at Clemson.
That's the problem, though, is he wins enough games to stay around, but he's never really good enough, right?
Yeah, no.
Like that's kind of the
frustrating
story.
part.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part.
Even Oliver Purnell before him made the tournament 3 straight years, lost every game, but at least he made it. Lost in the first round every year, but at least he made it. Cliff Ellis was really good. Rick Barnes had some nice. It is funny because now Cliff Ellis is doing good, big things at Coastal.
Right.
Rick Barnes is the head coach at Tennessee. Obviously, they're really good.
Yeah.
So Clemson has had some guys that can coach, and they ended up going elsewhere.
So it's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, and we're kind of stuck wallowing in.
WB2XD gets in and says Clemson has a basketball team? ? Apparently, a not very good one.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. They can be good, Let's move on from basketball. I do want to mention before we get off of here, Jordan. I do want to shout out the women's softball team,
as opposed to the men's softball team.
That's what the baseball team should play instead of baseball. Because they're not very good. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure our softball team could beat our baseball team. I'm just saying.
You might be right. Considering our pitching, they would.
Real, I'm trying to tell you, they'd be going yard with those baseball pitchers. Trying to tell you, but our softball team is now 21-1 on the season. Our one loss coming, a 1-0 loss against Tennessee, which has an absolute killer pitching staff. I don't know if Tennessee's pitching stats this season are absolutely insane. Absolutely really ridiculous. Good. They allow almost no runs. So that's our one loss on the season. But this past yesterday, Valerie Cagle pitched the first ever perfect game in Clemson softball history.
Yep.
Which is pretty amazing. Clemson beat Mercer 18-0. I didn't even get the game turned on in time to see the first 4 runs. I turned it on and we were already, destroying Mercer.
12 runs through 3 innings.
Yeah, before I ever got the game on, So, multiple home runs. Everybody's hitting the ball. Our poor coach is out there putting everybody on the bench as pitch hitters. They're still hitting the ball. We're still scoring runs. We're trying not to score runs. We're still scoring runs. I felt bad for Mercer and their pitching staff. They just got absolutely obliterated. But I couldn't get off of here tonight without shouting out Valerie Cagle and her amazing pitching. Albeit against Mercer, it doesn't matter. Anytime you pitch a perfect game, regardless, that's a big deal. And it's the first ever in Clemson history. They go back to they got games tomorrow against Jacksonville and UNC, and then they got some other games this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So shout out to the Clemson softball team getting it done. Number 4 in the country still, been steadily climbing. I think we started 10th in the country this season. We've climbed all the way up to the 4 spot. It's just been an amazing season. We opened up against Syracuse last weekend for ACC play. We're 3-0 in ACC play. So hopefully, we can keep the momentum going. Hopefully the offense keeps going, and we can continue this hot season that the Clemson softball team has started off on.
Yeah, on the Valerie Cagle thing, yeah, you got to build the statue at this point.
I'm just telling you. Look. I mean, she's definitely going down as I know Clemson softball's only been around for 4 years, but she's definitely the greatest player in Clemson softball history to date. And honestly,
at this point, you got to consider one of the greatest just Clemson athletes in history.
Yeah, I mean, it just in the country. I mean, you look across the landscape of college softball. I mean, she's one of, if not the best softball player in the country. I mean, you look at what she can do, not only pitching, but hitting, fielding. She is on the field every game, every inning, right? Whether that be she's pitching or playing first base or just knocking bombs out of the park. So. Talk about a player that can just absolutely do it all, and that is Valerie Cagle. So can't say as much for our baseball team. I think they've started the season 7-6. I think they got a weekend tournament with Georgia State this weekend. Hopefully they can figure out a way to win a couple of those games.
I mean, they won their midweeks this week against East Tennessee State and I'm blanking on the other team. They put Presbyterian.
Presbyterian,
coming off of the loss to South Carolina, the series loss to South Carolina, which, hey, given the pitching situation, the fact they won a game in that series was actually a miracle.
Yeah.
But
they opened up with a win and then got destroyed in the 2 following games.
Really, the last game they got absolutely ran, and then they were good for 6 innings of the second game, and then everything fell apart.
And then kind of fell apart, and then it was all downhill from there.
As soon as they had to dip into the bullpen, that was it.
It was over.
It was over. Oh God, went out the window. They held them to 3. I think they had 3 runs through 6 innings. You were feeling good, and then their bats just they were hitting everything that Clemson pitched. So
it was bad.
Again, this baseball team, it's going to be a process. They don't have a lot of this. This is a result of Monty Lee not hiring a real pitching coach. And now Eric Bakich is dealing with the fallout from it. And, there's some guys, they're kind of pitching by committee, or just whoever can pitch is going to pitch right now. They took Caden Grice out of the lineup so he could pitch. So tells you everything that you need to know. So
it's a rough go for Clemson baseball.
But
So
not
far.
without his bright spots though. There's some
Yeah,
really
no,
talented
I mean
freshmen in the group.
they're doing good. But like you said, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give you're gonna have to give him time to build a team to really get his coaching staff set in stone and really start recruiting and developing his players. So we just got to be patient on that end.
Yeah.
So.
And it will get better. I mean, Clemson had Jimmy Bellinger, Clemson's pitching coach. He's one of the best in the country. When he was at Florida State, they consistently had one of the best pitching staffs in the country. So it's going to get better, especially when and Clemson is recruiting at a really high level on the baseball front too. So there's help is on the way. I'm still really excited, and there's already some really talented true freshmen that are playing. Cam Canarella he's gotten a hit in every single game Clemson has played so far. So he's like a 4.57 batting average or something like that.
Insane.
Yeah, really good. And Tristan Smith has been a really talented true freshman pitcher. I think he's only allowed 2 runs through. I can't. I'm thinking of his stats off the top of my head, but I can't remember. But either way, still some really bright spots on the baseball team. Didn't want to spend too much time on it, but.
Some good stuff. John Sarin said Clemson has always been a football school and a basketball conference.
Yeah, that
is true.
That is true.
That is 100% true. We have never been a basketball school. I don't think we ever will be, really.
I just want to make the tournament more often than we don't.
I just want to be more competitive. I don't ever aim to be a Duke or a North Carolina when it comes to basketball. Just be more competitive. I know Clemson will always be thought of as a football school, and that's fine with me because obviously that's our favorite sport, right? That's the sport we care about the most. But being competitive in basketball wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely are a football school and a basketball conference. Football school. But we're going to get off of here soon, guys. So if you got any comments that you want to get in, if you have any questions that you want to ask myself or Jordan, please go ahead and get them in at this time. We'll give you guys a couple minutes to get those in, and then we're going to hop off of here. It's been a great show. Appreciate all you guys showing out. Appreciate you guys coming in, hitting that like button, getting your comments in, and listening to us chop it up about Clemson football for a couple hours here. One of the highlights of the week for myself. Appreciate all of you guys coming out and doing that. Hey, did you see while we're waiting for people to get their comments in the comment section? Did you see DeAndre Hopkins do that interview with Pat McAfee?
Oh yeah, I did. When he was talking about, I didn't see the full interview, but I saw the clip. Saying, talking about Dabo and the NFL and all that. And that the NFL could use a guy like Dabo, and so that was
I thought that was interesting. It was nice to hear DeAndre give some props to Dabo. I know DeAndre has had his his complaints with Clemson in the past, so it was nice to see him acknowledge that he is a product of Clemson football.
So. I mean, I don't think he's never lost love for the school. I mean,
no, absolutely not. No, 100% not.
Yeah,
I mean, it's his hometown. How could you, right? So it was nice to see. Hopefully, he gets out of Arizona soon. I don't think he needs to be there anymore. Hopefully, he can get out of Arizona.
Hey, send him to Jacksonville.
Send him to Jacksonville. Yes.
Could you imagine?
They just got Calvin Ridley reinstated.
Yep, they did.
So Trevor Lawrence got another crazy weapon over there. I think they,
I can't believe I just said send him to Jacksonville. I'm a Titans fan. I can't.
That just means your Clemson ties run deeper than your love for the Titans.
Yeah, it's a constant struggle I deal with because it's like I can't actively hate the Jaguars anymore. It's
right. Yeah.
Because like it was one thing for them to get Trevor, but then when they have Trevor and Travis now, and then I just it's too much, and they're doing really well, and I want them to continue doing really well, and so it's frustrating because I've had the horrible luck as a Clemson and Titans fan of having both Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence in my division at 2 different points.
That's rough.
Glad Watson is no longer with Houston, so at least there's only one Clemson quarterback that the Titans have to play twice a year.
Yeah, unfortunately, that quarterback is Trevor Lawrence, and
that's the problem.
He's only going to get better. So, for all the people that doubted him after that rookie season, I think he really did.
Takes were crazy. The buzz, all the buzz.
Wasn't it? Man, dude.
I'm like, do you realize who his coach was? Do you realize what situation he was in?
The dysfunction that was around Jacksonville and kind of all that talk that was around, man. Like, you truly saw, like, I count this past season as kind of Trevor Lawrence's rookie season. That's kind of what it was for me. He finally got a real coach that had a clue of what he was doing. So, but yeah, I look for him to continue to get better. T. Higgins can go ahead and come down there too. We could just look at
I don't think the Jags could afford that at that point.
No, they can't. They can't afford T. Higgins.
Could you? That would be the craziest wide receiver room I've seen in like the last 5 years.
You imagine?
Nuke, Calvin Ridley, T. Higgins, Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. Good Lord. And then you pay Evan Ingram.
Like, good God. Talk about no, that's too much. That's too much. You can't have all that. There ain't enough ball to go around for all those dudes. But all right, man. Well, it seems that everybody on here don't have any questions for us tonight. So guess we're going to go ahead and hop off of here. I think it's been a really good show. We talked about Clemson spring practice, talked about the Athletic Branding Institute, talked about our qualms with 247 and their college football coach ranking.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, all the other sports that we like to wrap it up with at the end. But I think it's overall been a good show. Again, to all of you people still watching, thank you so much for hanging out with your boy Tiger Paul Craven and Jordan Bowman tonight. We really do appreciate you guys. You guys are the guys that you guys make the show, right? If you didn't show up and comment and like and be here for our live shows, there wouldn't be a point in us doing it. So we really do appreciate it. It's definitely a highlight for both of our weeks. It's something that we really like doing. So thank you. Hit that like button on your way out if you haven't done so already. But with all of that said, I will let my boy Jordan Bowman send you guys off.
Once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Another great show tonight. Make sure you tune in next week, same time, same place, Thursday, 7 p.m. We'll have more to talk about, more spring practice updates, some of the returns out of the junior day this weekend. And I'm sure more will come out in the week. So make sure you tune into that. And also, Mark Rogers is live right now on the main Voice of College Football channel.
Absolutely.
So make sure if you still want to crave some more college football content, make sure you head on over there because he is live right now. So once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Head over to the Mark Rogers channel. Shout out the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Tell them we sent you over there. And as always, until next time, I am Tiger Paul Craven. He is Jordan Bowman. We'll see you guys in the next live.
Later, guys.